guys excited for November? Getting back to hopefully a normal schedule, and I put that in quotes. I know. I understand. No, I do. I mean, there are a lot of people sign up for Prob. I've told you in the Tuesday class, there's 2 people, right? And then everyone else is virtual. So, what? Now, technically, there's supposed to be a 5th person here, but the person shows up.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. But so this class, obviously, we'll be able to still keep you guys separated. I have no idea, because for the other class, like one class, I have like 25, 26 kids. I don't have that many desks in here.
Even if that never happened, you have a problem with that to begin with.
Yes. Now I got to shove everyone in here and have dividers between them for some reason.
Wait, are we actually doing that with the dividers?
I don't know. This is all like, basically, like, hey, teachers, we're doing this. Okay, how? Don't worry about it. So there's this show that I have never watched. It's like on Netflix, but it's like on some other channel. It's like what they call like Schitt's Creek or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever heard of it? Cool. I've never seen the show except for one clip. And this one clip is the guy is learning how to cook something from this older woman. And the older woman is reading him the instructions. And the woman just basically and she's like, the next step is you have to fold in the cheese. And he's like, okay, what does that mean, fold in the cheese? She's like, well, basically you just fold in the cheese. And he's like, yeah, but I don't know what you mean. What do you mean fold in the cheese? And they have a whole argument about what it actually means to fold in the cheese. And she will not relent from the fact that she's saying, just fold in the cheese, just do it. And it's just basically like, hey, teachers, you know all the stuff that you have to do, all the kids that you have to fit in your classroom, all the digital stuff that you have to do, dividers that you might have to have, just fold it in. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, back to me. So as I said, I have a little presentation pictures to show you before we get started with the actual lesson today. I want to wrap up the lesson that I have with my good old pal, Derek. Have I told you guys about Derek? No? You've never heard about Derek? You're going to love Derek. Anyway, we'll get there. And then we're going to talk about people dying on the Titanic, which is going to be great. Okay, to this first. Chappelle. Last Wednesday, you can see the date right there, the 14th. My wife received a text message with the following message. I'm getting it from US Speaks. You're serving voters and texting to talk to more people. Will you answer an 8-question survey or reply not now to end? And she showed this to me, and I'm like, holy crap. This is the first time that I have ever seen them try to do official surveys via text messaging. Right? Yeah, but this is legit. This is absolutely legit. Like, it's crazy because, like, we were talking about this when we were on the chapters of surveys and experiments, just the idea that, okay, they usually call, but the problem is no one really wants to answer their phone nowadays. And do you remember the response rate in North Carolina? The response rate, they asked like 50,000 people and only like 1,000 replied. They had a 2% response rate. 2%. And my wife, in her desire to prove me wrong all the time, shows me this text message, and she immediately is like, yes, I will do this. So here are some of the questions that they asked her. Japan, the impact of global warming in the United States. And then they give her a bunch of options. She shot at all this for me. It was great. You know?
I agree. Some disagree.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though. This is, believe it or not, a very nicely worded question. It is a very nicely worded question. It's displaying the question in such a way where they're not trying to show some implicit bias to one side or the other, and they're trying to give you wiggle room in terms of how you respond to questions. They really are. I don't know. So, next. Japan. Then, similar stated thing, but I support immediate action by the government to address global warming. And again, it's not saying like whose fault it is. It's not saying, like people who agree, people like weird stuff like that. How people typically word global warming type questions. It's just a very straight up, here's the question, what do you respond? No caveats, no, a lot of people leave, none of that. It just goes straight into this, which is nice. And then it keeps going. How significant are the cost of global warming? Boom. How worried are you about global warming? Again, just a very like basic statement. Chapoom. How likely would you be to vote for a candidate for public office because of their position on global warming? I know, it's very, a lot about global warming. Which of the following campaigns have you heard of? And these are campaigns about, the environment and cleaning the environment and stuff like that. And finally, using the phone skill, how do you describe yourself politically? And then, I just thought it was really cool, though, because, like, I've never seen this before.
That's weird. I guess so, like, maybe get more responses. I guess some people don't like when they call at a certain time. Some people don't respond. But like usually after work or whatever, people look at their phones and see their text messages.
And if they're up for it, they might get more responses. Think like if somebody were to call and they'd leave a voicemail, I would probably not listen to that voicemail for like 2 weeks. Is that fair? That's what I'm saying. Right? But yeah, I don't know. It's very weird. So I wanted to talk about this very quickly. On election night, typically on election night, like let's say like California. California is a very democratic state in terms of who gets voted for. But on election night, like the polls will close and they'll say, with 1% of the precincts reporting, we can say that California is going to the Democratic candidate. And you're like, wait a minute, what? What does that even mean? With 1% of California wins it. Do you know how they're able to do that? Exit polling. What happens is, quite literally, you go to vote, you walk out of the building, because they can't ask you inside the building, but you walk out of the building and somebody's like, who'd you vote for? So what they do is they do strategic exit polling in places to try to determine, okay, how are we're randomly selecting people. It's like this percent formula that we have. Okay, yes, we can call this state. And they feel pretty confident on it. And usually they're right. It's pretty nice, actually. So on election night, it's going to be a little crazy because with all the mail-in ballots and the provisional ballots, if you go to vote in New Jersey, I don't know if any of you are planning on voting. Okay. In the future, please do vote, though. It is important. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care what politics you have. It just is important. But on election night, if you go fill out a provisional ballot, the same kind of thing will happen. They'll know approximately how many people have filled out provisional ballots, and they'll know approximately what the percentage is that they voted for, either for the Democrat or the Republican or whoever. I'm actually pretty confident that they'll be able to call states on election night. A lot of people are like, nope, I'm not going to be able to call people for like 2 or 3 weeks. I think they're prepared. I don't know. I feel. Correct. Every state has the right to choose how they vote. Yes. Now, New Jersey, you don't have to send in a mail-in ballot. You can go the night of and vote, but that vote won't officially be counted for a couple weeks. Yeah. I think only like 5 or 6 million people have sent in their ballot so far, total in the country, 5 or 6 million, out of 140 million who voted last time. So, I don't know. It should be a fun night. I'm going to be live streaming all night. Come join me. Maybe, yeah. But the funny thing is, you're not actually voting for president in that election. You're actually voting for the person in the Electoral College that is going to then cast their vote a few weeks later. Yeah. Know how your politics work. It's how it's always worked. It's just that people just don't know. But everyone hears the information, and they're like, no, I don't want to hear it. Anyway, back to this. So let's get into the lesson that I want to do. Let's talk about Derek. Some of you may or may not know Derek. Some of you may have followed my YouTube channel and seen the amazing show of The Derek Show. Derek is an interesting fellow. Derek's my best friend in high school. Derek spent a lot of his years after high school kind of bumming around from job to job. Dude worked for the toll booth company on the Parkway. He worked for Tom's River Music. He worked for Fantasy Island. He worked for and the dude constantly had like these ideas of like, I'm going to get my band off the ground. They performed a few shows, like some interesting places that I went to. I don't know why, but the guy kind of was just lost for a while. Eventually, after somehow finagling a job with a technology website, he worked there for 2 years writing review articles on technology and like new computer chips and stuff like that. He eventually parlayed the job to work for a company called AMD. You guys ever heard of AMD? AMD is basically the main rival to Intel, if you've heard of Intel, but more people have. AMD is a huge computer technology company. Huge. He doesn't work building technology or designing it or programming it. He basically reviews it. He works in public relations. But now the dude who has bummed around his entire life is now, he's been working there for 2 years now, maybe now. He's making 6 figures with stock options. A guy whose crap hole apartment was blown away during Hurricane Sandy in 2012, living in Austin, Texas, making a ton more money than me. I'm very proud of the guy. Now look at me. See how tall I am? 5'6" 3/4. Eric is 6'8". Yeah, my best friend in high school is my best man at my wedding. You can imagine when we took the pictures, I stepped up a few steps above him and he was on the ground and he was still slightly taller than me. It was great. Now here's the point. In our little group of friends, everyone's roughly my height. I might have been on the shorter end. You know, I'll round that up to 5'7". I was like 5'7". There's another kid's 5'8", another kid's 5'9". And our little group of friends. Then there's Derek, 6'8". Would you consider him to be an outlier? Yeah, like just look at him, right? Just look at him. Clearly, he's an outlier. Well, there is a mathematical definition as to what it means to be an outlier. There actually is a mathematical calculation you can do to prove whether or not Derek is an outlier. Because if you just say, well, just look at him, unfortunately, that doesn't fly. And you can't get away with that if you're trying to give an explanation. Well, clearly, it's an outlier. Look at the data. Look, it's all the way over. No, sorry, can't do it. So here's what I need from you to get this thing started. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to need your notebooks out. See if I can find a picture of Derek. Oh, there it is. See if I can find it. Because I don't think I have any wedding photos. Let's see here. Photos. Let's see. People. Okay. I don't think I have a picture of him. That's sad. Just trust me, he's super tall. I am high school. He didn't have a car, so I drove mostly places, and I drove a tiny Geo Prism. The Geo Prism was so tiny that even I hit my head trying to get out of that car. Now you can imagine Derek with his knees pulled all the way up in the front seat. He always had to sit in the front seat. It's weird. So we're back at graphical displays. This is graphical displays continued. It's the 19th, rolling on our way. And let's talk about my friends and me. My friends and me. Well, now mind you, I'm not going to go like 5 foot this, 5 foot that, because I need to be a bit more consistent with my data. So if I'm 5'7", I'm going to round up. If I'm 5'7", that would actually put me at 60. inches tall. That's me. That is me. And then, like I said, in our little group of friends, we had like somebody who was 5'8", someone who was 5'9", someone who was 5'8", someone who was 5'10", maybe someone who was my height again. And then there's Derek, which if you did the calculation for Derek was 80 inches spurred in middle school, so severely that his kneecaps split in two. Think about that for a second. His kneecaps on both knees split in two. So now to this day, he has 4 kneecaps. Constant knee problems. Whatever, he works in a cubicle. I don't know. I don't even know if he has his own office down there. I think he does. Whatever. Now, if I were to input this data, just as a reminder, you don't have to do this with me. I'm just kind of doing this as a review at the first part. But I'm going to input my data where I hit stat and edit, and that is where I would input my data as we did last week. Why do I keep hitting a plus sign? I don't know. There we go. There's all my data right there. The 7 of us. And old Derek at the end. Now I can do a number of different things. I could find what they call a 5-number summary, where I would hit stat, tab over to calc. You will have this written down from last week. 1var stat gives me a bunch of information. And I'm going to write down some of this information. Not all of it, but some of it. I'm definitely going to write down X bar. X bar is 69.86. 69.86. And I'm going to write down S at 4.60. That's what that rounds up to. Not just a little bit. There we go. X bar is your mean, your average, the average of all my friends. And S being the standard deviation. Please tell me, what is so interesting about the value of the average? What is so interesting about the value of the average when you compare it to all my data points here? There's something actually striking. Yeah, the average is above all of us. The average is of all of us except for maybe this guy and this guy. Clearly, Derek. That average has been pulled in a certain direction, clearly in the direction of Derek. People would always ask him, do you play basketball? And he would get so mad at that because he hated sports. He was just tall. I'm going to scroll down a little. I'm going to write down this information as well because this is going to be helpful. I'm going to put this at the bottom of my page. Yeah, I'll put it at the bottom of my page here. I'll zoom out a little. So I got a minimum at 67. I got a Q1 at 67. I got a median being that middle value at 68. I got a Q3 at 70. And of course, the maximum of Derek. I'll zoom out. You can see those numbers right there. Minimum Q1, median, Q3, maximum. That is my 5-number summary. Now I'm going to show you in a moment. I'm going to remind you how to look at the graphical displays. But then we're going to actually prove that Derek is an outlier. We are going to prove that he is an outlier. Oh, Derek. I have all these stories in my mind. I had these like 2 Star Wars figurines that I super glued to my dashboard when we were in high school. And I was Han Solo. And you can imagine that Derek was Chewbacca. Yeah, anyway. Oh, Derek. Anyway. Oh, hey, I tell him. Yeah. I'm going to text him again today. Tell him. Oh, gosh. His story, amazing story, to be honest, because this is a guy, again, he had no direction in life until like his mid-30s. You know, no direction. Like, what in the world was he doing? You know, I can tell you some of the stories, but they're PG, you know. But he has seriously made something out of his life, out of sheer hard work and determination. Anyway, back to this. Second y equals. As a reminder to last week, second y equals takes you to that screen where you can create graphs. All of my plots are turned off. I'm going to turn that first one on. I'm going to go to a histogram first, just for the fun of it, just because I want to show you what the histogram looks like. Oh no, I can't see anything after I hit graph. Oh, there's something there. Get rid of that. Still, there's nothing there. Zoom. Zoom, and you can go through it. Zoom stat. Zoom 9 is the one that you need. Absolutely. Ba-bow. There we get that. Now, that looks terrible, but this is what our friends look like. Now, believe it or not, this would be designated a skewed graph. This would be designated as a skewed graph. You remember what direction skewed is? Skewed right or skewed left? Skewed right, actually. Here's the reason why. First, look where the tail is. The tail is always in the direction of the skewness. But think of it in this fashion. What did Derek and his height do to the average of my group of friends? What did Derek's height do to our average? Made it go up. It skewed it upwards. It's heavily skewed in that direction, even though it's not really supposed to be, because dude have a side note, again, looking at those notes. This is ridiculous. I'm going to look at the box and whisker plot. I want to look at that box and whisker plot. Let's just see what's going on here. Second y equals, I can go back into plot 1, and I can change to a box and whisker plot. I use the second one. I like the first one. We'll deal with the first one. Never. Zoom 9. Boom. Oh, crap. Is there supposed to be extra whisker? Isn't there supposed to be like an extra whisker like out here or some junk like that? Yeah. Oof. Do you know why it's not there? Huh? Outlier? No, not exactly. Not exactly. It's not just because there's an outlier with all of that, which, again, we believe there is. We'll prove it in a minute. The reason why that is because of that 5-number summary. If you go back to the 5-number summary, look at your minimum and look at your Q1. Usually between there is that other whisker, but it's the same number. That's just pure coincidence. That just happened. All right, here's what we need. In order to prove that Derek is indeed an outlier, zooming out, I'm going to need the following. To show a data point is an outlier, that point must be outside the following range. ... I'm going to leave that sentence there for a moment. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to zoom in on that sentence. To show a data point is an outlier, that point must be outside the following range. And I'm going to give you what that range is in a moment. It's actually a very simple calculation. Very simple calculation, but you got to know how to use this formula correctly. The range is this. Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR, which I'll review what IQR is in a moment. Q3 plus 1.5 times IQR. In order to determine whether or not a point is indeed an outlier in your data, it must be outside the following range. Q1 minus 1.5 times IQR and Q3 plus 1.5 times IQ. Remember what IQ stood for? interquartile range. It's the interquartile range. Now, regular range is dumb. Regular range is dumb. Max minus min, dumb. No. You need IQR. IQR, as we wrote down last week, is Q3 minus Q1. This is how you prove whether Derek is an outlier. This is how we prove Derek is an outlier, which clearly he looks like an outlier, but this gives the mathematical justification he is an outlier. So let's see. His IQ, my group of friends IQR, should be 70 minus 67, which is 3. That is the IQR of my group of friends. So then if I'm going to use this formula, should be 67 minus 1.5 times 3. We'll do that calculation in a moment. And 70 plus 1.5 times 3. We'll do that calculation in a moment. Again, Derek is 80 inches tall. It's ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Gosh, I really should bring up old photos of him or something. It's like just ridiculous how tall the kid is. See if I find like a picture on Facebook. Hold on. Can we get Facebook in here? Or does it not load?
Instagram.
Stupid Instagram. I don't have Instagram. Because Instagram's dumb. You sounded so like, why not?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Oh gosh. See if we can find, oh, here we go. I got on there. Where is photos? Does Derek even post photos? Do. Here, I'll show you a picture of Derek in a suit. There's Derek in a suit. Getting ready to go to work. He used to have long hair. He had like super long hair down to his like shoulders when I got married. Whatever. He was excited about his new job. He is a cute. Oh, sweet. There's a picture on his Facebook from my wedding. Hold on. I'll zoom in. You can see the height difference there a little bit. He's slouching down, though. He's slouching down, if you can tell, on the far left. Anyway. I don't even know, dude. We were dancing for like hours. You guys wish you had a friend named Derek. If you have a friend named Derek, you could always get the cookies off the top shelf. Anyway, back to this. One of my nieces is self-proclaimed short girl, and she posted this meme of like short girl problems. It was a girl trying to get the clothes out of the bottom of the washing machine. Anyway, back to this. But if I do this calculation, 67 minus 1.5 times 3, I get 62.5. If I do the other calculation, I get 74.5. Conclusion. Because Derek is outside this range, he is an outlier. Not just because, hey, look at him. No, that doesn't count. You can just say, look at him and say he's an outlier. Because Derek is outside this particular range. He was 80 inches tall. He is an outlier. When did I see him last? I've been messaging with him a lot. Like I said, he lives down in Texas now. Yeah. Yeah, he only had two choices. He worked for AMD. His choice was either Austin, Texas, or I want to say like Santa Monica, California. And he hates the ocean. The dude grew up here with me. He and I both grew up in Settlers. Like I told you, like Paragon Village. Yeah. The what? Oh, it is nice. It's a city, you know. So it is pretty cool. Now I want to show you something. Check this out. Zooming in, zooming in, zooming in, zooming in, zooming in, zooming in, zooming in. Here we go. Let me rerun something here. One var stat. Let me write something on the board. So I'm going to show you some kind of data analysis that we got going on here. Here is with Derek. With Derek, our X bar was 6.986 and our S was 4.60. Now, just a reminder. X bar is your average. You know what an average is. S is your standard deviation. Now, standard deviation is a little bit of a different story. Standard deviation is like average deviation from the mean. Now, a lot of me and my friends, we were all very close to this height. I was only about -2 and change from this height. So my friends are only like negative, fractions from that height, like that. Derek obviously was way plus from that height. But you took all of our distances from the mean and averaged them, so to speak. That would be something like standard deviation. Let me remove Derek from my group of friends. Let me remove Derek from my group of friends. Boom, there, he's gone. Now I'm going to rerun that one var stat. If I rerun the one var stat, look what happened. This is without Derek. Without Derek, the average is obviously going to be going down. But look what happened to the standard deviation. Yes, the standard deviation went down, but it went down by a lot more. Standard deviation is a measure of spread. Standard deviation tells you approximately how spread out your data actually is. For friends, our data was a lot more spread out. But if you remove him from the data set, all of a sudden, our data becomes much more consistent. Now watch what happens when I graph this sucker. Zoom 9. I still don't have that first whisker, but that data looks a bit more consistent. Let me change it to histogram. Zoom 9. Now you can see individual data points. Holy crap. Before it really looked like this just single giant bar and then Derek all the way at the end. Now it's consistent. Now there's like 2 people here, 2 people here, 1 person here, 1 person here. Crazy. Let's write down some stuff. Before I get to people dying on the Titanic. I know you want to talk about people dying on the Titanic. Titanic was not supposed to be about Leonardo DiCaprio. Did you know that? It wasn't supposed to solely be about him. It was an ensemble cast. They had a lot more stories about all the other people on the boat. But when they realized that, oh crap, people are really going to like this, they decided to change gears and make the movie all about Leo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. Dumb. So dumb. Okay, hold on. So let's do a little analysis. First of all, with Eric, I want to make sure I have this written down. My X bar was 69.86, and my standard deviation was 4.60. And then without Derek, remove him from the group of friends. Average obviously dropped down to 68.17, and the standard deviation shrunk considerably to 1.17. It shrunk considerably to 1.17. Here's a couple pieces of information. The mean is heavily affected by outliers. The mean is heavily affected by outliers. The median is typically not. The median is typically not I say typically because it may change from here or there, it may change by like a data point or two, but it typically remains roughly the same. No harm, no foul to the median. Go away, marker. Oh, for those watching, I made that. Shut up. Oh, goodness gracious. Furthermore, without Derek, the standard deviation shrunk and became more consistent. Now, if you look at my group of friends, if you remove Derek, we all look roughly the same height, maybe like an inch or two apart or something along those lines. We may look an inch here, an inch there, it doesn't matter. But with Derek, man, that was crazy. You know, oh, gosh. You know how at Barnegat, when you guys graduate, it's always in like alphabetical order? At Southern, he and I went to Southern. At Southern, we graduated by height. Yeah. He knew for years he would be the last one across that stage. Yeah. Well, at Southern, it was a huge production where they had all the girls in gold and had all the yellow, really, and all the boys in black. And the way they sat you down, they had like rows of like yellow and black, and then yellow and black and yellow and black. They had everything very like precise and precision-like and stuff like that. If you've ever been to Southern Regional graduation, I mean, I've been to all the Barnegat graduations that I can get. I've been to like maybe 10 of them, Barnegat. For Southern, they're like a surgical army when it comes to graduation. It's really cool. I want to talk very briefly. I may have said this before, but I want to say it again. Quantitative versus categorical, because we're about to make a switch here. Quantitative data is what we've been dealing with. Quantitative data makes sense to take an average. If you have quantitative data, it should make sense is quantity, has quantity as the root word. It is a quantity. Typically, we use things like box and whisker plots. We use histograms to display such data. We could even use what they call stem and leaf plots. I like stem and leaf plots. They don't get enough. TV time. Stem and leaf plots, or even what they call dot plots, things like that. Categorical data, on the other hand, which is what we're going to make this switch to. Categorical data doesn't make sense to average. Somebody shout out their favorite color. Somebody else shout out their favorite color. What? Okay. Someone shout out their favorite color. Purple and blue. Good. Because when red, it was going to mess me up. So pink, red, purple, blue. What's the average? Does it make sense for me to ask that question? No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense for me to say, what's your average favorite color? That'd be weird. It'd be like some weird brown color. Huh? Pink and red, they would mix too well. Yeah. But that's categorical data. It doesn't make any sense to average that. With categorical data, things have certain quality or category. Like for example, again, I could just say something like this. And I'll ask you all like a yes or no question. Do you think freshmen should be banned from coming to school?
Yes.
Now, let's just say there was some random kid who said no. Okay. Would it make sense for me to say, okay, and the average of all your yeses and nos? It doesn't make any sense. That's categorical data. It's categorical data. It's typically presented as a percent or a quote count. So for example, if I just took all of you in that question about freshmen, I could say, well, 100% of you believed that freshmen should be banned from school. You know, or I could say the count was 4-0. Yes, ban the freshmen. That's a count. Because I can give you like a tally of how many people said this and how many people said that. That is categorical data. Charts to display this data. If you have categorical data, you can use a pie chart. You can. You can't use it otherwise. But you can also use a bar graph. A bar graph is different from a histogram. A histogram, you have to order the data least to greatest and throw things into these individual groupings. Whereas with a bar chart, I can actually do a graph of a bar chart of your favorite colors or the favorite colors of everyone in the school or whatever junk I want to do. The junk that I want to do is people dying on the Titanic. I know you think I'm joking, but I have that, right? So I have to split people dying on the Titanic into certain categories. So if you've ever watched Titanic, you know that there's a huge difference depending on where your cabin was. First class, second class, third class, or were you part of the crew? Yes? What would you bet? So listen, I got to write down people dying on the Titanic. Or use a pen. I got a pen. Yeah. So let's see. I'm going to write down people dying on the Titanic. So we have deaths on Titanic.
What room are we in?
C205. And the class that they were in, they could either be in first class, second class. What's up? Oh, yeah. Oh, heck yeah.
I did better this time.
There we go. Nope. You're at the 9th.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Oh,
So, you're in first class. Obviously, you had better accommodations than everyone else. You know the deal with the Titanic, like why so many people died? They didn't have enough lifeboats for everybody on the boat. They got rid of a lot of like life-saving material in order to make the boat look nicer. That is exactly what happened. Like, you know, I mean, obviously they hit the iceberg, but the reason why they hit the iceberg is because they were trying to make good time. They were trying to be impressive. They were trying to show that they were the best boat on the planet. And they sunk. So, sucks to be them. So, here are all the people that died on the Titanic. 325 died from first class. 285 died from second class. 706 died from third class. And 885 died from crew. Now, this is not taking into account how many total people were in first class. This is just showing you how many people from first class died. Now, if I were to break that into a percentage, and I've already done the calculations here, this would be 14.8%. This would be 12.9%. This would be 32.1%. And this would be 40.2%. Then you are in this chart. Boom. Over 2,000 people. How sad is that? Be sad. Yeah. Now, the reason, here's the other thing that sucks. If you were in the crew, then most likely you had to make sure you were trying to get everyone else off the boat, or you were down in the bowels of the ship. The people who were, you know how they got the ship to move? They had people shoveling coal into fires in the bowels of the ship. That's how they got it to move. This is like 1912, right? They didn't have like motors and stuff like that on a boat that big. So they shovel coal into the furnaces in order to get the boat to move. Basically, when the boat started sinking, they ended up sealing a few of those places, and a lot of those people just had no shot whatsoever. Yeah, it was a crazy night. You should all watch Titanic. Sad. It's a good movie. Anyway, it's a dumb movie, but it's a good movie. Anyway, now I want to show a word here. Whenever you hear the phrase relative chart, anything with the word relative in it, a relative chart is referring to a display of percentages. I want you to equate those two words in your mind. Whenever you are referring to a relative chart, a relative bar chart, a relative pie chart, it doesn't matter. If you hear that word relative, you are referring to percentages, meaning that the graph is displaying some kind of percentages, or percentage, I should say. Now, a pie chart by definition is automatically percentages. We'll deal with that in a little bit. But whenever you hear that word relative, I want you to think that. I want you to be thinking percentages. Bring that up a tiny bit. Let's make a couple of bar charts here. Let's make a little bar chart here. A nice little fancy bar chart. Here we go. Let's go up on this bar chart let's go up by 200. 200, 400, 600, 800, 1,000. Whenever you're creating some kind of graphical display, you got to make sure that you have appropriate scale on there. I'm going to zoom in a little. But that is going up by 200s. 200, 400, 600, 800, 1,000. And I'm going to have a bar for first class, second class, third class, and the crew. You take that. Yeah. And this is going to be literally a bar chart. So now, how many people died in first class? Did I say 325?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. So I'm gonna have to estimate here. There we go. That works for me. There we go. There's the chart for there's the bar for first class. I'm estimating 325, and then it's what, 285, right? So it's got to be a bit lower, but not too much. Got to stay above 200 here. In second class, it looks roughly the same. There we go, but a little bit lower. In third class, it says 706. I'm going to do that with 706. There's third class right there. There we go. What you're writing down, though, that note about relative and percentages, those two words I need you to equate in your mind. Whenever you see relative chart or relative bar chart or relative pie chart or anything along those lines, it's dealing with percentages. Okay. And the crew, 885, sucks to be a part of the crew. Did you know it was on the Titanic that they first instituted that policy of women and children first?
Oh, is that why it's
Can I have your attention, please? We'd like to congratulate the
One second,
September
one second.
Student of the Month,
I hope I won.
Andy Salisi, Abby Darba,
Huh.
Jayana Bivens,
It's not me.
and Sophia Nieto.
Still not me.
Congratulations to Student of the Month for September. Will Annie and Abby please come to the
Cool. Well, the thing is, like, the whole thing about women and children first has always been, like, I guess, like an unofficial thought, you know? But it was the first time on the Titanic that was like, they really put that policy into place. And they really tried to get women and children first. One of the other issues is the first class people were so like, oh, I'm first class, blah, 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 blah. They weren't filling the lifeboats to capacity. They were like filling the lifeboats to maybe like 25% capacity, sending them out. Yeah, there's people dying, you know, but like, whatever. In the movie Titanic, there was an amazing scene where the boat's like beginning to sink, and some rich person, a hoity-toity person, comes out, and they tell the worker, they're just like, "Oh, it's cold. Make sure there's a fire in my room for the time when I get back." I'm like, the boat's going down, lady. Anyway, now, no number of people in class. Writing it on the side there, number of people in the class. And across the top, I'm going to give this. People dead on Titanic by class. Notice what I'm giving it. I'm giving it labels. It is very important that you give labels to any chart or graph that you make. You need to have proper labels. You need to label the x-axis. You need to label the y-axis. You need to give it a title. That would be phenomenal. By doing that, you are showing the person reading your graph enough information where they can understand what it is that they're looking at. Oh, roughly, it looks like maybe almost 900 people on the crew died. Roughly almost 700 people in third class died. Stuff like that. I can tell that not only based on the bars, but I can also tell that based on the labels that you put on your chart. It is very important. Very important. How many degrees are there in a circle? If you have all 360 chart, which we're about to do. If you're creating a pie chart, you can determine what percentage of 360 you have in order to determine the size of the slice. For example, this is one way of doing it. I want to give you a couple different ways of thinking about it. What percentage of the crew died? I'm sorry, let me rephrase. What percentage of the death on Titanic was the crew? 40.2. Now watch this. You could either figure out what 40.2% of a circle is, or you could figure out that 40.2% of a 360-degree circle is that many degrees. You could do either one. Question. In geometry, did you guys do a lot of work with like degrees on a circle? Okay. Trying to think, because a lot of the stuff that I may be referring to may be veering into trigonometry a little bit.
The only thing I really remember is like
The stuff.
yeah.
I got you. We're not doing that here. Just.
That's just really the only thing I remember from geometry.
I got you. Well, like I said, there's two ways of thinking about it. One, you could think about it in terms of percentages, or you could think of it in terms of degrees. You can think of it either way. Now, if I'm going to do it in the easiest way possible, first I'm going to draw what I hope to be a decent circle. It's going to be terrible. That wasn't too bad. That wasn't too terrible. I really feel pretty okay about that. I totally missed the center. Make the center a little bigger. There, I nailed it. There we go. Now, it says roughly 40.2% of the crew. Now, notice I'm starting with the crew. I'm starting with the crew because that's the largest percentage here. Now, keep in mind, if I did this slice right here, look where my pen is going. If I did the slice, what percentage is that? That's roughly 25%. Do you know how many degrees that is? Degrees on a circle is 25%. It's 90 degrees, yeah. And again, if I'm doing the crew, I'm doing the largest slice first because it's easier to do the largest slice first. That's clearly got to be more than that. If I did this, this would be roughly 50%, right? Or no, it would be 50%. Yeah. So it's like 25% is here and 50% is here, and it's got to be like 40. So maybe I'll do that, maybe, and that, and there's the crew. So I'll put the crew at 40.2%. Again, this is an estimate. I'm literally just estimating this stuff. All right, next one, third class. Third class is 32%. 32%, this would be 25% if I did this straight down, 25%, but it's 32%. So we got to go a little bit more. Maybe I'll go here. There we go. There's third class at 32.1%. Now the remaining stuff, that's got to be roughly 27-ish percent-ish stuff right there, but it's got to be split between first class and second class. Now I don't want to split it directly down the center. Maybe I'll do a little bit. Maybe I'll do a little bit more here. All right, let's do it that way. There's first class at 14.8%. I just want you to notice that this entire time I'm just trying to estimate this. Literally just estimating approximately where this stuff should go. I'm trying to be as accurate as possible, but I'm not about to break out a protractor. Screw that. I'm not about to break out a protractor. I'm going to show you something amazing in a moment, though. But this is the percent of people dead on Titanic by class. Notice I still put a label. I still put a title. You still need to do that kind of stuff. Make sure you're doing that. Make sure you are still putting that kind of stuff on there. I'm going to show you some amazing stuff in a moment. Let's see here. Come on, chair. Move. There we go. What? Cool. And flip. And flip. Here we go. Check this out. I went into my Google Drive and I just opened an untitled spreadsheet. I'm going to put some stuff here. So let's see. Class, first, second, third, crew, and number did. Remind me, how many in first class? Because I don't have it written down. 325, 285, 706, 85. Good. Now, I mean, it always bugs me that these things are not centered, so I'm just going to do that because it really bugs me. There we go. Now they're centered. You don't have to do that. Let me zoom in. Woo! Come on, zoom in. Zoom in. There we go. Cool. So you can kind of see that there. I just created that. Now check this out. What's really nice about this, I mean, obviously in Excel, this isn't Excel, this is a Google Sheet. If you highlight the numbers, do you see you can do the sum down there on the bottom right? You got the sum, they give you the average, the min, the max. It's amazing what they can do with this thing. They give you all that stuff right there, but that's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is this. So did I just highlight them? Just highlight the columns, insert, chart. Give it a moment to work. I'm zoomed in way too much. I'm gonna zoom back out. Look at that. Now you can get rid of that. That's just a chart editor right there. Well, look at that junk right there. Creates the chart for you. There's the crew at 40.2. There's first class at 14.8, 12.9, 32.1. It does it all for you. I mean, obviously, if you're using this properly. If you double click on it, you can change the chart. Let's change it to a bar chart. There you go. Now we got a bar chart, but it's a sideways bar chart. I don't like the sideways bar chart. Can I change the sideways bar chart? Setup, bar chart, Yeah, I like that bar chart better. Click. It's amazing what you can do here. You can change the colors if you want. I want to change that to red for dead. There we go. Do whatever you want with this thing. See, eventually, after we collect some data in the coming weeks and whatnot, you're going to have to organize your data into a spreadsheet, and you're going to be creating these kinds of charts. And some of these charts you're going to be creating are going to be quantitative charts, and some of them are going to be categorical charts. It's going to be amazing. Sorry, having it red, it feels very morbid now that I'm looking at the red. Oh, it does? Oh, my bad. I got you. Anyway, reminder for all of you, because I just posted this morning. This is the enrichment activity for those people that are not in class today, I guess, so to speak. I don't know, and this is for the enrichment activity for you guys tomorrow. There is a quizzes that was made available to you. There's a quizzes. The link is in Google Classroom. It is on graphical displays, both quantitative and categorical. Very basic stuff. It's due on Friday. We'll be able to knock that out. You do have 3 attempts to get that thing done. So you can get the highest score possible. Please make sure you are doing that and not leaving it for the last second. Oh my gosh. I gave a quizzes to my Algebra 2 kids last week, and it was due on Friday. It was due on Friday at 2 o'clock. And I told them on Monday, and I reminded them, and I reminded them, and I reminded them, and I reminded them. And then even at 2 o'clock, I pushed the deadline back to 4 o'clock on quizzes. And then at 5 and 6 o'clock, when I'm home, I'm getting emails. Mr. Markey, my code won't work. Mr. Markey, how come the code doesn't work? Mr. Markey, I'm like, you literally waited until like 3 hours past the deadline to even open the link. Come on. Don't do that. Be a good student. Anyway, like I said, we're eventually going to be getting back together as a single class, probably November 16th. It's going to be kind of nice. We're going to have, a few more days a week together or whatever, 2 days a week or whatever. But isn't it like less time? So like 45 minutes or something like that?
Yeah, I thought it was like a half day.
Just for the sake of argument, I just want you to think about what you'd be missing out on. If we only had a 45-minute class, I'd have to cut the whole Derek part. Anyway, I'm going to sign off this. Click. Goodbye, everyone on the internet.